If you're over 55, there's something you need to hear, because chances are you've been eating fruits you thought were helping you, when in reality, they could be doing the exact opposite. Joint pain that just won't go away, that nagging, stiffness in the morning, the slow, creeping loss of mobility that feels like it's part of aging. What if I told you that some of the fruits you trust the most, fruits you've likely eaten your entire life, are actually making it worse? What if eliminating just a handful of them could start turning your joint pain around in days, not years? And what if the real culprits aren't the foods you've always been told to avoid, but the ones you've been encouraged to eat? That subscribe button right now, because what you're about to discover isn't just going to surprise you. It might completely change the way you think about fruit, aging, and pain. Let's get into it. Here's what nobody tells you. Once we pass 55, our metabolism slows, our digestive enzymes shift, and inflammation becomes a bigger factor in how we feel every day. That means foods that were once harmless or even beneficial might now be triggering inflammation, worsening arthritis, and causing persistent joint issues. One of the sneakiest sources of that inflammation, fructose. Yes, fruit sugar. Not all fruits are the enemy, but some are packing way more fructose than your body can handle once your natural inflammatory control mechanisms start weakening with age. Take grapes, for example. They're sweet, convenient, and often marketed as heart-healthy. But behind their glossy skin lies a major problem. Grapes are incredibly high in fructose, especially when eaten in large amounts. And here's the kicker. Fructose doesn't get processed like other sugars. Your body doesn't use it directly for energy. Instead, it sends it to the liver, where it's converted into fat and inflammatory compounds. And research now shows that high fructose intake is directly linked to elevated levels of uric acid. That matters because uric acid is a key driver of gout and joint inflammation. When it builds up, it crystallizes inside your joints, especially your big toes, knees, and fingers, causing that intense stabbing pain that feels like it came out of nowhere. But it's not just grapes. Have you ever started your day with a smoothie packed with bananas, mangoes, and maybe a splash of orange juice? Sounds healthy, right? Except it's not. That smoothie could be flooding your system with over 60 grams of fructose before lunch. Mangoes and bananas are tropical fruits with high sugar density. When you blend them down, you're bypassing the natural fiber that slows sugar absorption. Instead of a slow, steady release, you're sending a sugar tsunami straight into your bloodstream. This causes an insulin spike, and as your blood sugar drops back down, inflammation rises, cortisol increases, and your joints pay the price. And here's where it gets even more interesting. As we age, we often develop something called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These are nasty little compounds that form when sugars bind to proteins in your body. Guess where they love to accumulate? Your joints, your cartilage, your tendons. The result? Stiffness, pain, limited range of motion. Now, guess what helps AGEs form faster? High blood sugar, especially from fructose. So those sweet fruits that give you a little burst of energy in the moment, they might also be the reason your knees ache when you stand up, or why that walk around the block feels harder than it used to. But let's go even deeper. You've probably heard that natural sugar is better than processed sugar. That's partially true. Whole fruits come with fiber, antioxidants, and vitamins. But not all fruits are created equal, and not all of them are safe for aging joints. For instance, dried fruits like raisins, dates, and figs are sugar bombs in disguise. They've had most of their water removed, which concentrates the sugar content drastically. A single handful of raisins can have more sugar than a donut, and yet they're still labeled as a healthy snack. But your joints don't care about labels. They care about what that sugar does once it hits your bloodstream. And for many people over 55, dried fruits are one of the biggest hidden sources of joint pain. And what about fruit juices? Orange juice, apple juice, even pomegranate juice. These are often seen as nutritious, even medicinal. But here's a reality check. A single cup of apple juice can contain 24 grams of sugar, mostly fructose. That's more than a can of soda. But because it's natural, people don't blink an eye. Unfortunately, your body does. It responds with an inflammatory cascade, activating immune cells that start attacking healthy tissue. This can lead to systemic inflammation that doesn't just affect your joints. It can also increase your risk of metabolic disease, cognitive decline, and cardiovascular issues. Still not convinced that fruit could be causing your pain? Let's look at another factor. Gut health. Fruits high in FODMAPs, fermentable sugars, can wreak havoc on your digestive system, especially as you get older. Apples, pears, and cherries are some of the biggest offenders. If your gut bacteria are out of balance, which is common after age 50 due to decreased stomach acid and enzyme production, these sugars ferment in your colon. That fermentation leads to gas, bloating, and intestinal inflammation, which has been shown to spread systemically. And what does systemic inflammation target? That's right, your joints. So now that we know some fruits can actually cause inflammation, worsen uric acid buildup, disrupt gut health, and accelerate glycation, what can you actually do about it? First, let's clarify something. Not all fruit is bad, but for people over 55, moderation and selection are everything. Instead of reaching for high-sugar tropical fruits, opt for berries. Blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries are low in sugar, high in antioxidants, and packed with compounds that fight inflammation rather than fuel it. They don't spike your blood sugar, they support your gut lining, and they've even been shown to reduce joint stiffness in clinical studies. And because they're rich in flavonoids, they also protect your brain. A double win for aging bodies. You also want to think about when you eat fruit. Eating it alone, especially first thing in the morning, can cause blood sugar spikes. Instead, pair it with a source of healthy fat, like a few almonds or a slice of avocado. This slows digestion, supports hormone balance, and keeps your inflammation in check. And never ever drink fruit juice on an empty stomach. It's one of the fastest ways to raise uric acid and set your joints up for another painful day. Now, let's circle back to a question I asked earlier. Why do some people feel fine eating fruit for decades, only to suddenly develop joint pain in their 50s or 60s? It comes down to accumulated sensitivity. Your body is incredibly adaptive, but it also has a threshold. Over time, repeated exposure to high fructose fruits, dried fruits, and juices wears down your liver's ability to process sugar efficiently. Your gut barrier weakens. Your blood sugar regulation becomes less precise, and eventually, what once seemed like a healthy snack becomes a hidden trigger for chronic inflammation. But here's the good news. Once you identify the fruits that are contributing to your pain, you can dramatically improve your joint health, often in just a few weeks. Imagine waking up without stiffness. Imagine going for a walk and feeling lighter, freer, more mobile. That's not a fantasy. It's a reality for people who understand that health in your 50s and beyond requires different strategies than it did in your 30s. And it starts by asking the right questions. Could that banana-a-day habit actually be keeping your inflammation high? Is your healthy smoothie turning into a sugar bomb? Are those raisins in your trail mix sabotaging your progress? You deserve to know the answers. You deserve to feel strong, mobile, and pain-free at any age. If you're over 50 and your joints ache when you get out of bed, go upstairs or just try to enjoy a walk. It's not your age, and it's not your fault. The real issue? Your body's running out of a natural substance that cushions your joints like a shock absorber. And most supplements out there, glucosamine, collagen, all of it, don't fix this. But now, researchers have discovered a breakthrough that can actually restore what your joints are missing. And people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s are seeing real relief. If you're feeling stiff, sore, or weaker lately, stop guessing. Check the link in the pinned comment now. So let's keep going, because we've only scratched the surface. There are still fruits millions of people over 55 are eating every day, completely unaware that they're silently contributing to swelling, stiffness, and long-term joint damage. And this next one might shock you, because it's often found in every healthy fruit salad, and it even shows up in hospital menus. Let's talk about pineapple. Now, on the surface, pineapple sounds like a dream food. It's rich in vitamin C, contains bromelain, which is touted for its anti-inflammatory effects, and it's sweet and tropical. But here's what's hiding underneath. Pineapple is one of the highest fructose fruits you can eat. Just 1 cup of pineapple chunks has over 16 grams of sugar, most of it fructose. That's a huge load for your liver to process in one sitting, especially if you already have some degree of insulin resistance, which most people over 55 do, even if they've never been diagnosed. But what about the bromelain, you ask? Isn't that supposed to help reduce joint pain? Yes, bromelain has been studied for its anti-inflammatory effects. But here's the catch. To get enough bromelain to make a difference, you'd need to eat several cups of raw pineapple core, the tough, fibrous part no one actually eats. And even then, the sugar spike from eating that much pineapple would likely cancel out the benefit. So if you're relying on pineapple for joint relief, you're likely getting more harm than help. There are far better sources of natural anti-inflammatories. That won't come with a sugar bomb attached. Let's move on to another fruit that carries a healthy reputation, but hides a darker truth for aging joints: oranges. Yes, good old oranges, the symbol of vitamin C, the classic addition to breakfast. But here's something most people don't realize. Citrus fruits like oranges can be a double-edged sword. While they do contain antioxidants and vitamin C, they're also highly acidic and contain natural compounds called citric and ascorbic acid, which can irritate sensitive tissues when consumed in excess. As we age, our gut lining becomes more vulnerable, especially if we've dealt with stress, medication, or a diet low in fiber and high in processed foods. When the gut is compromised, acidic fruits can lead to inflammation that doesn't stay contained to the digestive tract. It spreads, and the result is often subtle at first: a dull ache in the fingers, a slight flare in the knees after a long walk, or waking up with stiffness that lingers longer each day. Now combine that with the sugar in oranges, and you've got a fruit that not only spikes insulin, but may also trigger an inflammatory response throughout your body. And don't be fooled by healthy alternatives like orange juice. In fact, orange juice is one of the worst offenders. Without the fiber to buffer absorption, the sugar from that single glass goes straight into your bloodstream, overwhelming your pancreas, flooding your liver, and pushing uric acid levels even higher. And guess where uric acid loves to settle? That's right, inside your joints, forming sharp crystals that grind every time you move. Another fruit to be cautious with? Watermelon. This one really trips people up, especially in the summer when it's refreshing and hydrating. But watermelon has one of the highest glycemic indexes of any fruit. That means it causes a rapid spike in blood sugar, fast. And it's mostly water, so it doesn't provide any lasting satiety, which means you're often left hungry and craving more sugar soon after. For someone dealing with joint pain or trying to manage inflammation, watermelon can be a stealthy saboteur. And if you're someone who feels puffy or swollen after eating, especially in your hands or feet, watermelon may be a key suspect. Now let's pause for a second, because you might be wondering, if these common fruits are causing pain, what can I actually eat? That's a great question. And here's the good news. There are fruits that not only support joint health, but actively fight inflammation. But before I share those, there's one more fruit that must be mentioned, and it's likely sitting in your pantry right now, dried, wrinkled, and marketed as nature's candy. I'm talking about dates. Dates are nutritional landmines for anyone dealing with joint pain, especially in older adults. They're extremely high in natural sugars, with a single medjool date containing more than 16 grams of sugar, and people rarely eat just one. Dates raise blood sugar fast and are often used in energy bars, healthy baked goods, and smoothies, where they're blended into a paste that's even easier to digest, meaning it hits your bloodstream in minutes. That sugar spike is followed by an insulin spike, then a crash, which triggers cortisol, inflammation, and in many people, fluid retention, all of which can make your joints feel heavier, tighter, and a cheer within hours. Worse, the sugar in dates can accelerate the formation of those glycation end products we talked about earlier, the ones that stiffen your cartilage and make every movement harder. So, while dates may seem like a harmless natural snack, they can be one of the biggest stealth causes of chronic joint pain in older adults. Now, what should you be eating instead? Let's flip the switch and talk about fruit that actually helps. Start with blueberries. These little powerhouses are loaded with anthocyanins, compounds that have been shown in multiple studies to reduce inflammation, protect cartilage, and even help repair connective tissue. They're low in sugar, high in fiber, and they support your brain and your joints. Plus, they don't spike your blood sugar the way tropical fruits do, making them perfect for anyone over 55 who's trying to maintain mobility. Blackberries. And raspberries are excellent too. They're packed with polyphenols that help block enzymes that degrade cartilage and connective tissue. They also support gut health, feeding your microbiome with prebiotic fibers that reduce inflammation at the source. And because they're lower in sugar, they help keep your insulin stable, which is one of the most important keys to aging without chronic pain. Avocados deserve a mention as well. Yes, they're technically fruits, and unlike any of the others we've talked about, they're high in fat instead of sugar. But that's exactly what makes them magical for joint health. The healthy monounsaturated fats in avocados help lubricate joints from the inside out. They're also rich in potassium and magnesium, two minerals that are often deficient in people with chronic pain and inflammation. And unlike bananas or mangoes, avocados won't spike your blood sugar. They stabilize it. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Not all fruit is bad, but not all fruit is good, especially after 55. Your body changes, your metabolism slows, your ability to handle sugar declines. And if you keep eating the same way you did in your 30s and 40s, your joints will pay the price. But if you become just a little more intentional, if you swap out that daily glass of orange juice for a handful of blueberries, if you replace that banana in your smoothie with half an avocado, if you trade those dates for a few raspberries, then you're not just avoiding pain, you're actively creating health. You're choosing foods that love your joints. You're protecting your future mobility. You're giving yourself the best possible chance to stay independent, active, and pain-free for years to come. Because here's the truth. Joint pain isn't just about age. It's about inflammation. And inflammation is something you can control every time you sit down to eat. So what's really causing your pain? Is it age or is it your fruit bowl? Thanks for watching. Now go check out the video on screen about the foods you should never combine with fruit if you're over 55. It might just be the final piece of the puzzle you've been missing.